Let's speak with Sir Christopher Meyer, former UK ambassador to the US. Christopher, good afternoon to you. Nice to have you with us.
Good afternoon.
Now, listen, I mean, this is, people keep talking about it being the most important election ever. I'm not sure that is true, but certainly it's one of the most interesting.
Well, it's certainly the most important election, I think, since the Second World War, because one of the things that's at stake in this election, which is important to outside countries and allies of the United States traditionally, like the United Kingdom, is the whole rules-based system of international relations and international order, which has been put in place since the Second World War, namely by the United States itself. Now, this is at stake as well as the United States as the electoral nation.
So, the suggestion here, Christopher, is that Trump kind of ripped up the rule book.
Well, Trump has been ripping up the rule book, and what bothers me is that if he does win this election, he won't have to stand for re-election again. And this will produce a kind of Trump unbound, Trump unleashed. We may think he's been pretty unleashed over the last 4 years, but I would suggest to you, Ian, that you ain't seen nothing yet if he wins this election. Yeah. He will not feel constrained by any obligation to try and win 4 years hence.
What has been his achievements? I mean, he's been there for 4 years. There's clearly a support base. There must have been things he has done, Sir Christopher, that you would look at and say, actually, no other president has really achieved that. I'm thinking more towards the Middle East.
Well, it's certainly true that he has brought a certain kind of reorganization in the Middle East and has succeeded in doing what he said he would try to do, which is pull most of the American troops in the Middle East, particularly in and around Syria, out of the region. He has encouraged a kind of rapprochement between Israel and some of the Arab states, and including the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia. Now, depending on where you stand on the Israel-Palestine issue, that's been a good thing or it's been a bad thing, but he has achieved it. I think personally that the big thing that he has achieved, although it needs to be handled very carefully because it's potentially very dangerous, is to call out the Chinese on a number of practices which they've been allowed to engage in over the last decade, 15 years, abuse of the international trade system above all. He's called them out on that. And I don't think if Biden wins, it's going to be a return to how things were before, but Biden will be starting essentially from a position which Donald Trump has bequeathed him.
Yeah, indeed. And on to Biden, Sir Christopher. I mean, this is a curiously divisive character as well. He's not a guy with a clean rap sheet either.
Well, kindly name me a presidential candidate in the US election in the last 50 years who's had a completely clean sheet. True. I mean, there are all kinds of stuff thrown at Joe Biden and at his son, Hunter Biden, and we don't know whether these things are true or false. And you read out a tweet or a message from one of your listeners who was very, very rude about Biden. None of that is proven. And if you're going to raise the argument he's too dirty to become president, hell, you might as well exclude half the presidents we've seen since 1945.
True enough.
Or half the presidents we've seen in the world, actually.
That's a fair point.
To be frank with you.
It's a fair point. I mean, at the moment, it looks like Biden is the man heading for the White House. Why is it, Christopher, that I cannot imagine Mr. Biden sitting in the Oval Office?
It's not easy when you see this doddering, shuffling old man who has difficulty handling the kind of big events that Donald Trump does, like a heavy metal rock star. But I knew Joe Biden quite well about 17, 18 years ago when I was ambassador in Washington. And he was one smart Pole. He was a very smart, very, very experienced politician. And some of those smarts are clearly still there. So the last thing I would do is write him off just because he's showing early signs of, how can I put it, old age, being a bit forgetful here and there. He's smart, and he will know how to delegate to smart people. It doesn't just mean his Vice President, Kamala Harris. It means a whole bunch of Democrats who are waiting in the wings to serve in a Biden administration.
Do you think it could be? I forgot there is an official name for it, isn't it? That you're almost running by cabinet committee running the country. You're sitting there as the figurehead. You pop up every now and again in the Rose Garden, but actually it's those around you that are running it. And in this case, Kamala Harris will be taking the reins before Mr. Biden's tenureship of the White House is up. You'll be familiar with that theory. Do you think there's anything in that?
If I were Kamala Harris, I would be very careful about appearing to be too much the president in waiting, in the expectation that Joe is suddenly going to keel over one day and she'll be ushered into office. Because when you're talking Joe Biden, you're not just talking the man, the individual, the guy who sits in the chair in the Oval Office. You've got a bunch of very close advisors around him who are working mainly out of the White House itself. The cabinet, in a curious way, doesn't matter all that much. What matters is the White House staff, the staff in the National Security Council, and they are appointed by Joe Biden. And if they get the sense that Kamala Harris is trying to encroach on their territory as if she has already become president of the United States, she'll get a punch on the nose. Dick Cheney was a very powerful vice president when George W. Bush was president, but he always knew where to draw the line and show respect to the president. So people who think it's going to be a Kamala Harris 4 years, I think are wrong.
Final question, Sir Christopher Meyer. Who's best for Britain, Biden or Trump?
Joe Biden, without doubt.
Sir Christopher Meyer, thank you, former UK ambassador to the US. That's his view on this. What are yours? 0344499 1000.